Hello, welcome to EBS and another episode of Come Sit With Us here. And very happy to have you with us as always. Today, what I wanted to share with you is something that, along those lines, that I was reading, and this is a magazine called Lion's Roar, and it's a Buddhist magazine. And in it, they talked about things to do when life gets tough from that Buddhist perspective. And it's kind of interesting to read because it acknowledges that sometimes life doesn't go how we want it to. Sometimes it does this, sometimes it does that, sometimes it's this, sometimes it's that. And that roller coaster can be a very difficult thing to ride at times. Certainly, just to have the ability just to stay on board until the ride finishes is an adventure in and of itself. But from a meditation perspective, what this article brought up are what are things that we can do in order to ride the ride that we're in, even though it might be something that we are not expecting or whatever. And I noticed that in the helpful hints and the tips that it gave, what it primarily talked about really is that ability to connect with first yourself and to connect with others. Now, when they talk about connecting with yourself, you kind of wonder, well, I'm always connected to myself. What does that mean? But in this sense, I think that what they are referring to is that Buddha nature that is within us and is there. And perhaps in our quiet moments of meditation, we feel that flower open and begin to bloom. And we feel like I've come home. This is the true essence of who I am. And I think that is kind of what they're referring to, is connecting with that true essence of who you are. Now, for each of us, that's all very different. That journey getting there is going to be very different. What it's going to be like once we arrive for each of us might be quite different. But making consciously, this was the key I thought was good, consciously acknowledging that you're on that journey, consciously recognizing what that journey might be for you, and then fully consciously working with that process so that it does unfold with you. And that awareness of consciously working on that journey just needs to gently rest in our mind. It's not a super focused point of discipline or anything like that, as much as we might just consider it. It's just like watching that flower bloom or whatever that object of beauty, if you will, that you might imagine, and just resting in that flower, that beauty that's there, and allowing that to unfold within us. And perhaps that is that connecting with yourself process. And so sometimes what they suggest is when we meditate, sometimes embrace that awareness of all of the struggles that you are going through and know that they're there and that they're real, and just hold them gently, if you will, in your awareness as you begin to recognize that Buddha nature that lies at the center of each of these events in your life, these struggles, these things that are there that challenge you, perhaps. The focus is not so much on the hardship and the struggle, not kind of dipping in those deep waters, as much as the awareness that they are there, and that even while we go through these challenges, that Buddha nature is still there. The beauty that we talked about, that unfolding beauty that is an essence of you, is still there. And so meditation, hopefully, makes us more aware of that end of the spectrum, because we all are naturally aware of the end of the spectrum where it is hardship and struggle, and we do have some challenges that we have to face and such. And so that was one of the helpful hints on what we can do in tough times. The other one they gave is that was connecting with yourself. The other one they gave was connecting with others. Now, I don't think what it meant was make more friends on Facebook or expand your social circle and such. I mean, you can do those things if you want. That's fine. What I really think that it was kind of meaning is that ability to reach out to somebody and to hold them in compassion as you actively engage with them, and you're not judging, you're not trying to fix anything or point out the differences that are there or whatever it might be, but perhaps what you're doing is in some way, shape, or form, you are making an effort to see their Buddha nature that they have. And that when you see that, maybe you begin to understand that their Buddha nature and your Buddha nature are really not that different in the essence. Maybe the path on how we get there is going to be incredibly varied and what have you, but perhaps we have more in common than what we think if we allow ourselves to be open to that Buddha nature. And so today's meditation, as almost all meditations in a sense, is a focus on that compassion for ourselves. And that's a little bit harder than what we think sometimes, the ability to forgive, to accept, to recognize and understand what we have to work on, but not to be defined by those shortcomings, okay? And have that kind of compassion for ourselves and that kind of compassion for others. And we find that in that, I think the deeper we go into our meditation practice, perhaps the more aware we might be that we do walk a common path together. And when you have that sort of awareness, then perhaps even as you do go through tough times, you do it with a modicum of grace. And perhaps if you have that ability to feel light in heavy times, then you have that ability to share that with others. And my experience almost always is when that's happening with somebody. There's a point in the conversation where all our differences seem to drop away for a little bit, and we are connected and have a very heart-to-heart kind of thing going on. May only last for a little bit, may last for a lifetime. It doesn't matter, as much as you allow yourself to be open to that possibility of compassion. Because compassion, in essence, is always there. We just have to kind of recognize it and then allow it to find its way in our life. Such. So, I think that if you consider everything in today's news and what have you, I think it would be fair to say, yes, we're all going through some tough times. And so not a bad time to practice a little bit of compassion. So the meditation today is simply following your breath out. And so when you breathe out, you just follow it all the way out. Just keep going out and out. You take a big breath in, relax, release it, and just follow it out. Now, what will probably happen is that as you practice this a little bit, doesn't take much, is you find yourself going further and further and further out with that breath to a point to where maybe all of a sudden you realize that you maybe, you haven't taken a breath in a minute or two. You feel very calm, you feel very restful. You feel like you're getting to a point of stillness, perhaps maybe a point of peace and such. And I forgot where I've read this, but it is said that you follow your breath all the way out, that you do find stillness, and in stillness you do find compassion. And so today, we're just going to simply practice following our breath further and further out and just let it kind of keep going. And it'll settle, and maybe in that quietness, we create the opportunity for compassion to begin to unfold even more so in our life, and not a bad practice at all. So let's go ahead and do that today. And so as we sit to meditate, every time I sit and I'm about to meditate, I start to slow my breathing down and feel my body begin to relax. And as it relaxes, my awareness of my body begins to grow. And I just allow that awareness just to settle, just simply on my body. I feel my legs, my hips, perhaps my back, my chest, shoulders, jaw, forehead. And I just take a breath and just breathe out. And let all of that begin to settle. And perhaps while I'm doing this, I might begin to feel a little lightness, a little expansiveness. The awareness of the space I'm in begins to grow. The awareness of sitting on the cushion or the chair, of the space my body holds, begins to grow. As this awareness grows, my breathing gets a little deeper, a little longer. I begin to become aware of following my out-breath, just a little bit at a time. As I rest my awareness on my breathing, I begin to follow my out-breath further and further. And I allow that awareness just to simply grow. And as my thoughts come, I allow them to settle with each breath out, and I return my awareness to just following that breath further and further out. With each breath, I pour myself deeper and deeper into that breath, going further and further out. All right, let's take a deep breath in. Open our eyes. There's so much to discover in our meditative practices. I think sometimes we discover the connections that we share, and sometimes we discover the walls that we've built, you know? And both of those, oddly enough, can go on at the same time. And that I think that for myself, I am full of limitations, but I also am aware that we are connected at some level, and we share this space, this journey together at some level. And then the small Steve doesn't feel so alone and scared and insecure, and you name it after that, right? We all know that place. But that greater part of who I am begins to make its presence known a little bit. The image that comes to my mind, it was a very common one, for all of us. That is the ocean with the waves bashing and churning doesn't know its true nature until those waves settle out and the surface becomes calm. And then once it's calm, it begins to have that awareness of its depth that is there. And if anything, every time we meditate, maybe what we're doing in a sense is letting the monkey mind know it's really okay. Just settle out, feel that connection, and know that it really is okay. It's all right. The monkey mind wants to race around and grab all the bananas it can, because who knows when you're going to get your last banana? We don't know. You got to go grab one. The meditative mind is that mind that's kind of resting awareness in whatever moment it finds itself in. And we'll go through that moment with whatever it takes to do to go through those moments, but has that broadened awareness that it really is all right. And that we do get on the other side of difficult times. Sometimes a little beat up and bruised for the process, but we make it, we manage to make it. And so I think maybe in today's meditation, that is not a bad thing for us to remember, perhaps to practice, is that connection with ourselves and that connection with others can be best found, appreciated in those moments of stillness that we have. And if you have a meditation that offers that stillness to you, then perhaps you are like the ever-ready bunny, that it charges your battery. And so the next time you go out, the next time you get to spend time with that family member, that neighbor, that work partner that challenges you, then perhaps that compassion comes across, and maybe you touch something that you weren't able to touch before, and so that would not be bad. All right, guys, thank you as always for being supportive of EBS, and check out our groups that are online. Some of the groups are beginning to meet in person, I believe, but you'd have to check with them and see about that. And just being part of this family, this meditation family that we have, it means a lot to everyone that we all are supportive of each other in our practice. So stay strong, and as they say, stay strong and carry on, right? So we'll see you guys. Take care.